we're hanging out
Yeah.
and I don't know, doing stuff. Like usually you come over early and
Yeah.
we'll talk about like what we're working on in the week, We'll even be doing a project. Then we kind of slide into the radio show. Today, you literally
5 minutes.
been working on stuff. You like just walked in the door. How are you?
I'm good. It's hot outside, which
It is.
It's May, so I'm not okay with that yet.
Yeah, my feet are sweaty right now.
It's awful.
Is that odd?
It's a little weird. Yeah.
Am I okay, getting a little too real right now, but like, am I the only one that has sweaty feet? Let me know in the Discord. By the way, if you guys want to make comments and such, go to our Discord because we can see your chatter and your questions and comments. And
I want to commiserate with you on this one, but I don't get sweaty feet.
Can you let me know if anyone in the Discord, like, please let me know. I don't know what, okay, to the point where I remember we had choreography one time where the dancers actually had to like, you know, grab my leg. I would like lean forward and they'd grab my leg and like the dancer on the end was grabbing my foot.
Yeah.
And in the show, it was fine because I had tights on and my little jazz shoes. First of all, I remember literally the embarrassment as I like flicked my leg up and like Addie grabbed my foot. I just remember being like, oh heavens.
I will say there's been a few quick change moments where I've had to try and like, you know, shove a shoe on or pull a shoe off. And you have sweaty feet.
Yeah. Okay. That's not normal.
Well, okay. So we're getting mixed reviews here. Some people are saying yes. Some people are saying no. Andrew says good old sweaty feet Stirling. So.
Oh, is this like a known thing on the crew? Like,
well, I mean, you know, we have people on the crew that we give a hard time to because they bring a certain smell into the bus. So I'm guessing on your bus, that's you.
I wonder if the dancers talk about it behind my back.
I'm sure they do.
Like if it's like a thing, like Lindsay and you know, it's funny. It's not only my feet, it's my hands too.
Andy says it is now.
Andy, you're not supposed to be listening. So for anybody who doesn't know, Andy is my lighting tech, my lighting designer.
Director,
I was like, tech is not the right word. He's my lighting director, my lighting designer, and so much more. He helps me in the creative stages of my tour. It's like not even fitting and respectful to call him a lighting designer because he does so much. But anyways, Andy's been with me for like probably 7 years now. So yeah, Andy, just forget that I just told, you know.
You know what? I'm gonna make you feel better. Lacey, you're right. Lacey does have sweaty feet.
She
leaves her shoes outside the bus to let them air out.
Oh, maybe I should do the same thing.
I think we all should, actually, to be honest.
We should.
Just common courtesy.
Just like there should be like a little base spot for shoes.
Yeah, there should be. Oh my gosh, let's do that next time.
Let's do that.
I'm going to build them.
Oh my gosh.
Put it on my list.
I can see you now. Just like, you're like, tour's only, 6 months away?
Who's on tour right now? I need measurements.
Right.
Oh God.
Any artists want shoe bays for their shoes. Okay. Well, anyways, I am really excited today because we're going to get into it in a second. But, well, I guess we got some time before we get into our discussion, but I'm just going to preview it and let you guys know what we're talking about today. We're going to be chatting with Lindsay Kite and Lexie Kite. So there's actually going to be three Lindsays on this call. And I'm so excited about this topic today. We just like grazed the surface last week, but we are going to be talking about our relationships with our bodies and how we have expectations of them that we feel like are very normal. And we feel like we have been told this is what gives us worth. And it's funny because I've read their book. Their book is called More Than a Body. It's an amazing read. And it's funny when I've like explained it to people, like just in conversations in the last, like I read it like 2 months ago and I've mentioned it to several people. I'm like, it's an incredible book. It's about how media shapes our relationship with our body. And everybody's response is like, oh, of course. Yeah. We all know that. But it's like, I can't even describe how this book takes it to such a deeper level that that doesn't do it justice. Yeah. It goes into they studied psychology and they have PhDs. They also both went through their own unique experiences with their own bodies and their own phases of, whether you want to call it disordered eating or whatever, they went through their own phase of that throughout their lives. And so they just have such a knowledge of how what we've been made to think is okay, the normal that we live in the relationship with our bodies. We just accept, we all know that media shapes the way we view our bodies. But it's like, no, but the more you can be aware of it, the more you realize that, no, I'm not going to believe that. And it's all about awareness and understanding. And again, I just feel like I'm not doing this justice. But
I have to ask you, over the last week, have you been more aware of being like, oh, you look great. Because I know I have. Every time I say that now, there's this little itch in my brain that's like, aha, you did the thing.
Yes.
I'm aware now.
Yes. And I think a lot of you guys were probably here last week when we were talking with my sister, Brooke, and we were discussing this, how oftentimes we are so prone to compliment and to connect with people over our bodies. And even when Lindsay walked in today, when Fish walked in, I said, oh my gosh, you look so great. You know, and I commented.
You immediately caught yourself.
But I couldn't believe I commented on your, not only like your outfit, I commented on like your fitness. And, like, your body looks great.
Which, by the way, my intuitive reaction was, oh, thank you.
Right.
Like, I felt really good about it.
It is a hard call because I'm like, reading the book made me realize, and just the discussions we've had since made me realize it's like never appropriate to comment on somebody's body.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're going through. You don't know if they are in a healthy spot. And it is a good thing for them to say, thank you. I've been working, helpfully and hard on my body. Or if maybe they're not in a good place and maybe they haven't eaten for weeks because they're depressed and like you're encouraging a bad behavior. So
exactly.
Yeah, so I've caught myself so many times, but yeah, as I said it, I was like, wait, no, I shouldn't say that. Your presence is wonderful. It's good to see you. Oh my gosh, you're working so hard.
I knew what you meant.
But it's going to be a process. And the more you start to realize you're doing it externally, I think even more importantly, you start to realize you're doing it internally.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're doing things inside your mind, to your body, about yourself constantly. Yeah. And I feel like I've caught myself even more in those moments. Yeah. The way I'm evaluating myself when I look in the mirror and just realizing why.
Yeah.
Why?
100%.
It's fascinating. I'm so excited to talk to them more about this topic, but also we should discuss just some of the things we've been excited about and we've been doing.
Lots going on right now.
I'm pretty exhausted.
In a good way. Yeah.
I'm like really excited and I'm happy to be busy and I'm stoked that like we have projects. Yes. Like you said it best the other day. You were like, what did you say? You said, because I told you a new project. And you
I don't remember what I said.
But you were just kind of like, nothing makes me more.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I feel like I have worth, which is, I say that facetiously. Like I know that I have worth outside of what we do, but it definitely flips a switch in my brain somehow in some weird subconscious way where I feel like, oh, I can be productive again. Like suddenly everything just makes sense. It's almost like this weird little invisible puzzle piece that just gets put into place and suddenly I'm me again. Yes. Which, we could peel that and, kind of talk about the issues there. But at this time in my life, it is what it is. And I'm excited to be busy.
It's funny because sometimes I think exactly what you're saying. I'm like, why is it that I feel a little less myself? Like it's as if myself is tied to my productivity in my work.
Which it is.
And that's the thing. Yeah. It is. And
I don't know that I hate that for myself.
Yes. It's like if I fall apart mentally when I don't have a project to work on, that's one thing. That's really bad. But if I just feel like excited and like the little parts of me are coming to life when a project is being created, I think that's just the same way some people, like we all have hobbies. We all have things that make us feel more alive. Yeah. And right now, as many of you guys know, I'm working on a Christmas album. Fish and I have been like throwing all kinds of ideas around about touring. Yep. Having discussions about the Christmas tour.
VIP.
Yes, what the VIP is going to look like. We're
VIP is going to be so fun this year, guys. Something that you guys have never seen before. Yes. Very excited about that. And then just some extra little things that I don't think we can talk about right now, but they're big. And
I don't even know what they are, but
the sushi restaurant discussion. the dragon on the house.
Yes. Well, I mean, we can tell them. I feel like this is my place where I get to like say whatever I want. And I know managers are always like, that is not true, Lindsay, just because.
Oh, they're all listening right now.
They're always like, hi, Jess. they told me that they feel like they're the bad guys of my Discord. Oh, no. I was like, that is not true. Like as if I just like crap talk my manager all the time. By the way, guys, I love my managers. They're the freaking best. Just want to say a shout out to Adina, Jess, Sammy, Jeremy, Tasha, all the people, Katie. I have an amazing team.
It's a great team.
I just love to kind of.
We have to have a villain in the story.
Like someone's got to be the bad guy, and sometimes it just falls on. I just will say things like my management will get upset at me if I say this, but really, they're always just trying to protect us.
Oh my gosh, we have fun things on the horizon for this year. So that's We're excited.
Yes, super stoked. And so yeah, we've been just brainstorming a pile. And it's funny that you bring up VIP because I think that sometimes people think that VIP is just like artists are just trying to make money through their VIP.
You care so much about yours?
I would say we do.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And Lacey, who's listening right now, she's our VIP coordinator. Like right now, we are already trying to make a dream experience for fans in VIP. And it's something that, one, I mean, I will say it does pay for the tour.
Yeah.
Or not the tour. It pays for those extra bits we want to put into the show. Yeah. We're well, the VIP will cover that, you know? So yes, it is partially important to make money, but it's I just want you guys to know that we put a lot of thought and love into making sure that it's an experience. I want people to leave and be like, that was awesome.
We've taken a lot of notes about what we liked or didn't like about the past several years and gone into this year, weighing all those things and making some really fun decisions about how can we make this year so memorable that people can't wait to come back. So I'm really excited about it. Lacey's just a machine of ideas and it's going to be so fun.
And if you guys have any thoughts, because I'm sure that a lot of you guys in the Discord right now, you guys have been to VIPs, probably some of you. So share your thoughts. What things did you like? What things were you kind of bummed about? Please let us know. We don't know until you share.
And to make that easier for us, drop it in a mod mail because right. Don't
put it in the comments right now because I think people are still talking about my sweaty feet.
Is
anyone related yet?
Well,
and nobody.
There's been 2 people that were like, "Hey, me too."
Okay.
I just don't want to break your heart.
You know what? I realize it's obviously abnormal, the amount that my feet sweat. I have to wear socks on the couch or I will
I never take off my socks. I mean, I have a weird thing where I don't like the feeling of my bare feet against the world.
I love barefoot. I'm like a little hippie child.
Well, yeah, in multiple ways.
I'm wearing a checkered fuzzy hat right now.
You physically look like a little hippie child right now.
I'm sitting on a little...
I say that as a little hippie child.
I was going to say, we are one and the same in this. Okay, well, I want to get back to our discussion again because I'm going to bring in our wonderful guests for today. So just a quick intro. I know I already spoke about them, but Dr. Lexie and Lindsay Kite, twin sisters, they both received their PhDs from the University of Utah. They've researched media studies on body image, and this inspired them to start their nonprofit, Beauty Redefined. They started in 2009, and their whole goal is to help women recognize and reject harmful messages about their bodies, their worth, their potential, and redefine the meaning and the value in their own bodies and their lives. I freaking love this topic. You guys know I speak to this a lot. I've written art about it. Today we're going to specifically be kind of talking a lot about their book, More Than a Body, that they released in 2020, or not released, they published. They published in 2020. But with no further ado, I want to bring on Lindsay and Lexie Kite. So let's invite them into our little room right here. And I do think it is fun that we've got the quadruple L effect right now. We've got Lindsay, and Lexie. Yes. So let's see. I think they just came in. How are you guys doing?
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. How are you?
We're great. How are you?
Doing so good. We're just chilling here. It's very warm in LA. Are you guys in Utah right now?
Lexie's in Utah. Lindsay, I am in New York. So we are far apart.
Oh my gosh. What are you doing in New York?
I live there. I live in Manhattan.
Oh, I did not know that.
That's amazing.
That's so cool. How do you like Manhattan?
I love it more than anything in the world. I've been here for 3 years and it's the greatest move ever. And it's been so awesome. It's true. Lindsay has been, Lindsay's been living her best life in the city, and I go visit her all the time. We have a good time.
Yeah, that has to be hard for twins to be. I mean, I would think. Sorry, I'm projecting a lot of opinions on you. I said, how much do you love New York? I didn't say, do you like New York? I was like, how much do you? And then I'm saying it probably is hard. But is it hard for you guys to be apart, or have you guys lived apart a lot of your lives?
Both are really good assumptions. New York obviously is an amazing place to live, so don't worry about that. For the twin thing, we talk on the phone every single day and we FaceTime every day because Lexie has 2 little girls that I'm obsessed with. And so I need to see their faces, even though they don't want to talk to me that much. It's not that fun for them. But yes, we definitely talk a lot.
That's amazing. I have twin nieces, and I just think about like how connected they are and how twins seem to have this special like almost telepathy.
Yes.
That any twins I've met seem to have that. And so it sounds like you guys kind of have that.
We do. We are total weirdos. We are like, I mean, we have thrived living separately, you know, like we didn't want to be such twins. We never planned to be into the same things, to do masters and PhDs together, to write a book together. We never planned any of that. And it all just kind of worked out because we have the same passions, the same interests. And so to this day, we will catch each other like sending each other the same tweet at the exact same moment across the country from each other. We are just the most identical weirdos you will ever meet.
Mm-hmm.
We come home.
I'm also very jealous.
Yeah. It is pretty fun. We'll often go shopping without talking to each other at all. And of course, we're 2,000 miles apart, and we'll see each other and we own the exact same things that we haven't discussed. We'll show up at the airport. Yeah, it's wild. It really is like a nature and nurture thing. It's so funny.
Yeah. That's wild. My twin nieces, they're only 4, but my sister recently told me, she's like, it was their birthday coming up. She took them both out separately to get a present for each other, and they both picked plastic red fire trucks for each other. And she was like, when the first one picked it, I was surprised. I thought, odd, like they don't talk about fire trucks. And then when the second one picked it, she's like, this is so odd. So there's like a magic. I love it.
Yes, there is a magic. We've definitely used our twin powers for good instead of evil. And that's because for the first 30 years of our lives, we used those powers for evil.
Okay, not 30. Not 30. Like 26, it was evil.
Okay,
yeah.
26. Yeah.
Okay. Give me an example of the evil.
Oh, we were just super competitive our entire lives. I mean, we write in the book about how we were and how all twins, all people, but especially identical looking people are just compared constantly. People look us up and down, immediately make a value assumption. Oh, you've got the chubbier face. Oh, you've got the crooked teeth. You've got a mole on your nose, whatever the thing is. There's always a winner and a loser. Oh, so that kind of, it definitely set us up to compete like crazy. And then we were good at the same stuff and interested in the same stuff. So we would compete. Oh, we ran against each other for class president. Lindsay won one year. I won one year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Lindsay would go to class for me in college 1 or 2 times. I did not return the favor.
No, and that actually, the most ridiculous thing. So we look the same, and one of our classes, a large lecture class early in the morning, freshman year, and the professor would call roll and give you an attendance credit for the whole semester by randomly calling 3 names every class. And so we decided we were just going to take turns and take notes for each other, and either of us would answer to either name. And so, of course, I went when Lexie's name was called. And then the day my name was called, Lexie refused to go. So ended up with a B minus, and I got a B plus. Lexie got an A minus, and I will never let it go. Never.
As you should. You should hold on to that one.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious. I love it. Well, I have to tell you guys, I read your book probably 2 months ago, and before we get into the book, though, I guess I should back up a little bit. I first heard about you guys when one of my friends from college told me about Beauty Redefined. And then my sister told me about Beauty Redefined. And for those of you listening, that is your guys' nonprofit that you guys started. Your Instagram is amazing. And it's full of empowering messages. And I feel like there's been a few times even when I found a lot of clarity from the opinions you guys share on there. And so I'm curious, throughout your progression of growing up as twins, feeling compared, having your own body image issues, whatever they were, and then going to college and studying, what was there a moment that kind of made you realize that, or was there an experience that made you guys realize that there was a calling for you in this area?
Yeah, Lexie and I had pretty identical twin experiences when we first started taking the same college class. And so we were back in that mode as freshman year of college. We were trying not to be the twins. We're trying to be separate individuals and, pave a path for ourselves, have our own individual identities. And so we both wanted to be journalism majors, and there was a required class that we decided to take separate sections of. So same semester, just different times. And that class, we were just so unassuming, didn't know really what the class was going to entail. It was just a required thing. And it turns out the class was called Media Smarts, and it was about the ways media is engineered to manipulate our perceptions of things. And that included things like gender, of course, body image with that, also race and violence and all of these things that you don't even realize are kind of engineered in certain ways to drive actions and purchases and beliefs and all of these things that really shape our whole culture. And Lexie and I both, in separate classrooms, had this experience where when we started learning about the gender side of things and how the only women's bodies we ever saw represented positively all looked one way. They were all white women who were very thin and very young. They had curves in all the right places, but none of the other markers of humanity that would ever come with curves or with living or aging or anything else. And it really lit a spark in both of us. Like both of us, I know, were overwhelmed with this feeling that, wow, yeah, we had been deeply impacted by these ideas that our bodies were not normal, were embarrassing, that we always needed to lose weight. We always needed to get our skin care in check and get our hair, improving and be up with the latest beauty trends. We were kind of obsessed with those things. And we really believed, like so many other people, that our worth, our happiness, our value, our confidence, our desirability, all of it hinged on whether or not we looked right. And we never did look right. And we never would at that rate. And so I remember coming home from class one day, and we shared a tiny little dorm room together, which of course drove our competition and our fury toward each other for that whole year. But we came home one day, and I remember saying something about how that media smarts class was really good. Like it gave me goosebumps. And Lexie said the exact same thing. And we just realized that we both had been so impacted, and it really touched us in ways that our classmates didn't really get. Like I remember my classmates not even thinking it was all that interesting. And for me, it was like my eyes were open to this whole world of the ways that I had been taught to see my body as wrong and embarrassing. And it turns out that all of that is just created by profit-driven industries. So that was kind of the beginning, I think, of Lexie and I both feeling this drive toward not only understanding it better for ourselves and uprooting all of the shame we felt, but then, going on to get masters and PhDs together over the next, we spent 10 years nonstop in college studying this stuff.
Wow.
And we are not particularly driven or smart. Like we did not feel compelled when we started out to think that we would do 10 years of school without taking a breather, and that we would start this nonprofit and do all these speaking events and interviews and the book and all of that. It wasn't in the plans. And yet from the very beginning, we're almost 37, and this started when we were 17. We are 20 years down a path where nobody was talking about this stuff. Body image, eating disorders, they were not a thing that celebrities talked about, that people opened up about. There was no social media to share your stories in a vulnerable way. There was no talk of body diversity at all whatsoever, that the world needed to see more, representative visions of what womankind looks like. And over the years, we've seen that change. We are one of many now that are doing this work, but we do feel like the doors have just been thrown open for us to be able to kind of do this unique work that sounds a little bit different than what everybody else is doing. Because we're not just talking about expanding the definitions of beautiful, of sexy, of, what gets to be considered appealing. But what we're talking about is helping people see their pain, see their shame, see the roots of it in our culture, in our media, the ways we talk to each other, like you guys were talking about earlier. And then to use that as your spark. Every time you feel that shame rise up, every time you feel yourself picture yourself living instead of just living, thinking about how you look. That is your spark to come back home, to get back inside your body as an instrument, not an ornament. And it's been so fun to see this work move forward over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh my gosh, you guys said so many things. I was like making mental notes and then I just stopped because I was like, well, no, there's so many gems right now. So, but I will just go back to one of the things that I believe it was Lexie that was just talking. Was it right?
No. Yes, you got it.
Okay, got it. See, I know my twins. But you said that like what you guys do is a little bit different. Like there are so many people talking about this message now, but like I truly feel like when, like I was saying before you guys got on, since I've read your book, I've told multiple people about it and they say, oh, well, that sounds interesting. And they ask me more and I start to describe it. And when I start the pitch, they're like, oh yeah, of course. We all know that media affects the way that women feel about our bodies and that it's not good. Duh, like no brainer. But I'm like, no, but it goes so much deeper. And as I start to go into it, you guys bring up so many unique reasons as to why it's evident that you guys aren't just talking the talk. You've walked the walk, the stories, it's mind-blowing when you guys start to list out all the things that we as women just assume are part of being a woman and part of just being in society and being normal and fitting in. It's like, it's mind-blowing as you kind of talk through that list. But going back to like media in general, because that's kind of where your whole journey started. Let's talk a little bit about like, when you start to dissect why media is talking to us the way they do, it starts to make you realize how unimportant it actually is. And how unvalid a lot of their things are. So why is the media talking to us the way they talk to us? What is there an agenda behind their motives?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that agenda, it's money and it's money every time. There is hundreds of billions of dollars, full economies that are banking on making sure that girls and women, anybody who identifies as female, is so defined by their bodies that they are confined by their bodies, that they have to think about their bodies as a lifelong project, that if you do not constantly think about and fix your shape, your size, your skin tone, the size of your pores, the length of your lashes, and on and on and on, that if you're not doing those things, you're unlovable. You are unlikable. You are unhireable. You're unsuccessful, unhealthy, all of these things. But it's based on money. Like there's this stat we share in our speaking events, and I'm sure we shared it in the book too, that women obviously don't make the most money in the typical household, but women are in control of spending up to 90% of the dollars spent in every household. And media makers and industry leaders, they know this. And so they start targeting us when we are just tiny. It's why you see basically a one-dimensional view of femininity in kids media. Like I have a 6-year-old, she just turned 6-year-old daughter. And when we are watching shows, it is, believe me, we talk about it. It is wild to see that there is really only one way to be a girl, and it is curvy. It is eyelashes. There's these markers of femininity that we've been taught, like you have to put on. You buy it. You do it. It's not just innate. Like male is the default, female is the other, and usually the sexualized other. And when you start there and you realize like this foundation that has been laid in our media, that's been laid in our culture when we police the things girls are wearing because we call them immodest, we call them too sexy. When we talk about girls and women as bodies and we see ourselves that way, it bleeds into this economy that is banking on the fact that we spend our money and our time thinking about our bodies and thinking about ourselves as bodies first and people second. And it reinforces power structures that like not only the capitalism that Lexie's describing, where there are literally huge industries that are banking on our insecurity, banking on our interest in constantly fixing our bodies in order to achieve happiness and desirability and all of the things that every person wants in the world. But it also reinforces all these power structures of like men being in power and being the ones to be able to choose and being the ones who are valued for a huge variety of things, including their attractiveness, but also their talent, their wealth, their intellect, their humor, so many other things. Whereas women are always valued primarily for how we look, plus then our talents, our humor, our wealth, anything else. We've got to have the looks before we can even be valued in any other way in so many industries, which I'm sure, Lindsay, you know better than anyone. It's so difficult in these really, high profile industries where women are being presented as sex objects and objects for consumption by other people, when men sometimes just get to be the talent. They don't have to conform to these ultra specific sexualized ideals. And that's these power structures. White supremacy is part of it, where thin white ideals are, the primary ways that we perceive attractiveness in our culture. It really just reinforces some same old traditional structures that often keep women and girls submissive and down. And when we're not aware of these things, they can really, really get the best of us. They can really take over our own self-perceptions. That's a huge part of the work that Lexie and I do. It's just helping people to see their way out of it. Like you said, when you're describing the book to people and you're talking about how the media distorts our perceptions of ourselves, and like now, yeah, people do know that. Now that's kind of like a common sense thing. But I think what people don't realize is the extent that it has woven itself throughout our lives. And it's not just that we don't feel beautiful. It's that we are perceiving our own bodies that we live in, that we are born in, as objects for other people to view. We're watching ourselves living instead of fully focusing, living inside our own bodies.
Oh my gosh. I could listen to you guys talk all day.
I have in my head of things that are coming up from my childhood.
Yeah.
This is bringing a lot of things to surface that I'm like,
oh my gosh,
I thought of this in that way. And I was taught this. Oh my gosh.
I will say when my sister, it was actually my younger sister who recommended this book to me. And she said, she paused and she goes, "It's a lot." She goes, she's like, I read the first few chapters and I was really overwhelmed. I had to take a break. And because it kind of wakes you up to oh my gosh, I've been brainwashed. I have been brainwashed. And, it really is. And I just love how you said that this idea that the media convinces us that we are projects to be constantly worked on. When you said that, Lindsay, my fish, we're going to call her Fish for today. She immediately smiled at me and she pulled at her cheekbones to the facelift.
Yes.
Yes. But it's true. It's we're made to feel we need to stay a certain way.
Yes.
And so and it's a conscious thought. I think whether you are a performer that has to get up on stage, and I definitely have fallen into that trap sometimes where I feel my longevity as an artist relies so much on maintaining, I don't know if sex appeal is the right word. I'm such a dork.
But it is.
But it is.
It is.
Yeah.
And I actually went to a concert with a guy took me on a date several years ago to a country artist concert, and it was a male performer. And the guy that took me, and we went backstage and said hello to the artist beforehand. And he's like, "I think it's so cool that these guys, they just wear their t-shirt and jeans, they go up there and they just sing and they don't." I got so annoyed and I looked at him. I was like, it's not because he's so cool and he doesn't care and he's above it all. I was like, it's because a man can do that. And he goes, "No, and I was like, no. Women have to wear sparkly spandex fitted. We have to work, get our waist small. We have to do an hour of makeup and hair. Not because we want to and we think it's cool, because I was like, can you imagine if you came to my show and I stood up there in a t-shirt and jeans? How odd that would be to you?" And he stopped and he's like, "You're right. It is a woman thing." And I don't know. So there's just such a different expectation and people think, oh, it's just because he's cool and he doesn't care what people think. You're like, no, it's because there's a different expectation, whether you're going on a date or whether you're walking onto a stage or whether you're a man aging or a woman aging. It's just very, very different.
And we're taught that's normal.
And we're taught that's normal.
Yep. And it's really invisible to us.
Yes.
That's the thing. It's just baked into our lives. We don't question any of this because we were literally born with it. And a lot of our moms, our parents are born with it. They see themselves that way. They reinforce it on us. It's not just social media. It's not just the popular media that we've been exposed to in our adult lives. It's baked into our whole culture and the way the organizations that we're involved in see women, you know, the dress codes that are enforced on us in school and church and everything else that we might be involved in growing up. It's in everything.
I'm sitting here thinking back to like my grandmother and how she put so much time every single day into doing her hair. So when she stepped outside of that, people thought good of her, and how she put that thought into my mom's head. And then my mom put that into my head. And I'm expected to someday put it into my daughter's head. And it's just kind of like subconscious thing.
It's like this trauma that we pass on through generations, because it is trauma. It's not like we're all doing this electively and for fun. We are not making these choices in a vacuum. On the one hand, yes, you can have fun with makeup, with clothing, with beauty. You can have fun with that. But the truth is, and what we write about in the book, is that we ask everybody to take an inventory in their lives of the things they do in the name of beauty. We call it beauty work, just all of that stuff, the money, the time, the effort that you put in to just feel like you. And the truth is that a ton of that stuff we do is not motivated by fun. It's motivated by shame. We do it because we are so ashamed of just that natural state of being, that if you walked out like so I've got just like a beautiful husband who gets away with doing nothing. He does his hair, and then he puts on a t-shirt and jeans that don't have to be form-fitting, that don't have to flatter his figure in all the right places. He never thinks about the length of his eyelashes. He really doesn't think about his eyebrows. Sometimes I do. He is not asked to take on the labor and the effort. And so one of the things that Lindsay and I really like to talk about that we think is so foundational to our work is this idea of self-objectification. It's this thing that happens in all of our lives because we grow up in an objectifying world that convinces us our bodies are projects. And so from the time we're really young, we start living outside of our bodies. We live like we are an outside observer to ourselves. Even when you're alone, you look down at your legs and you think, is this the right angle for me? Like, should I cross my legs? When you're walking down the street, instead of thinking about, you know, anything else you could be doing, the weather, anything, you've got this mental task list in your head that says, oh, should have washed my hair this morning. It's super greasy. I bet the guy walking behind me thinks I'm such a grease ball. Or keep my leggings pulled up above my muffin top so that everything looks smooth, and on and on and on. We picture ourselves living. And so it disrupts our ability to like experience real joy, to experience a flow state when you're working out or wanting to be creative, when you're writing a song or performing. It literally stops us in our tracks. It stops us from engaging in like healthy relationships with people because we get so stuck on how they perceive us, how they think of us, that we're just happy they're with us, you know? It in so many ways, when we prioritize that outsider's perspective on ourselves, we are left at such a disadvantage from living our own happy, fulfilling, actually healthy lives.
Yes, I loved that section of the book. I think that was one of the several big like aha moments I had when reading it, was like, oh my gosh, so much of my life I live outside my body. And I've actually really been putting a lot of it, very intentional effort into like doing things to kind of reverse that process, because I realized how disconnected I am in a lot of moments. Like you cannot fully connect with someone if you are outside observing either what you look like or just observing. Even like, I think that's a big part of anxiety, is when you get so comfortable with the uncomfortable feeling of being outside of your body and observing yourself. You can't be present. You can't be in your body. You can't be comfortable. And so you're half, you guys even talked about in this, it's like in the book about how you split yourself in half. There's half of you that's focusing on the conversation with someone, or focusing on eating the food and what it tastes like, or what the person's actually saying and feeling. There's only half of you that's actually there, or even what you're learning in class. And the other half of you is observing and seeing if you're okay in the moment. That is anxiety. That is like, to me, the best explanation of maybe why I've been such an anxious human for so long. I've been split in half. And I loved how you guys put it in the book. And Lindsay, in your TED Talk, you said, even if a small part of your mental energy is constantly dedicated to your looks or like observing yourself, you said you are at a disadvantage in life. You will not be able to connect with other people. You will not be able to fully focus on, whatever it is. And, I think that that's one of the biggest things. After reading your book, I think that's one of the biggest things that sets women apart and holds us back in terms of why maybe there's such a big discrepancy in like kind of a ground level factor of one of the whys as to why there are more men CEOs or that men get paid more. It's because they're not as split. They are not at the same disadvantage as most women are in this case.
Oh, yeah. Totally agree, because that self-objectification thing puts you at a disadvantage from two different angles. You're being objectified by the outside world. Like, you're being evaluated based on how you look subconsciously, sometimes overtly, blatantly, by other people and the organizations that we're involved in that really do judge people based on their weight and their hair texture and their skin color and all of that. But at the same time, we're also facing it from within our own minds in ways that we aren't consciously aware of at all. Self-objectification is primarily an invisible, unquestioned thing. And this anxiety that you're describing is so interesting because I feel the same way. Lexie and I think, grew up being anxious without even really being aware of it, because the process of having negative body image and feeling fixated on your appearance is a process that is just rife with anxiety. It's these fears that you experience. It's this feeling of wanting to be in control of how other people perceive you. And so we cope with all of these mechanisms that try to exert that control by dieting, by buying new clothes and new makeup and making plans for cosmetic surgery and scrolling endlessly through social media, or like when we were little, flipping through all the teen magazines and looking for inspiration and answers and exercising relentlessly in an attempt to try to control our bodies and to make our appearances fit within the ideals that we've been told would lead to happiness and boyfriends and, being healthy and having the approval of our families and people at school and all of that kind of stuff. It's such an anxiety-ridden process. And yet so many women don't recognize it because we think we're just hyper observant. We think we are multitaskers and that we are just extremely self-aware, and we pass it off like, men sometimes can just be solely focused on one thing and, they can't handle too many tasks. And I think sometimes it's all part of this idea that we are partially fixated on maintaining an attractive appearance for whoever is around us, even if we don't actually care about their opinion. We are still part of our subconsciousness is dedicated to monitoring how we look so that we do look nice and sound nice and act nice and fit in with all of the feminine ideals in ways that we believe will be acceptable. There's so much anxiety in that because we're not actually in control of how other people perceive us, regardless of how hard we try. You could fit every single ideal, and not every person is going to think you look good or be attracted to you or accept of the way you dress. We'll never fully have the acceptance and be able to control that perception. But the anxiety in our minds about our body image tells us we can, with enough effort, with enough attention and focus and discipline, we will be able to get there. And it is a complete and total lie. It drains us. Yeah. Like, it is depressing. It is, draining of our finances, our mental and physical energy. Like you said, it gets in the way of relationships. You cannot really have full emotional intimacy or physical intimacy when you are crippled by this feeling of hating your body and being so scared of what your partner's thinking of how you look in those moments.
Right. And I think you're like hitting so many different points right now, but it's like, how often, I love how you said we think we're multitaskers and that we're just thinking about multiple things at once. It's like, well, no, we're actually being distracted by from our own existence. Are we fully living? And are we and I just know that, I had an eating disorder in college that got really out of control. And I remember the thing that made me realize whatever it took, I was ready to get better, and I was willing to do whatever it took to do so. The tipping point for me was when I realized that I had no more real relationships.
Yeah.
I realized I had sacrificed, I was kind of willing to sacrifice almost everything to quote unquote feed this eating disorder. But when I realized that I no longer had a real relationship with my sister, when I realized that I could not focus on a conversation on a date because I was so distracted by like all the things you guys just talked about, or even like worrying about what the heck they were going to take me to eat for dinner, like all those things that just made me realize I'm not living. Like, it's like I started down this path, who knows why, but I have to get out of it purely because you can't have real relationships if you're stuck in that split mindset. Like, it's just, it's impossible.
Totally.
I really like how you
express that. Yeah, Lex.
Sorry, go on.
I love what you said there. I think so many of us can relate to that. Most of us are struggling with some form of disordered eating, you know, whether or not it can be fully diagnosed as an eating disorder. Most all of us, especially the girls and women, are dealing with some form of disordered eating. It's the binge and restrict cycle that we all live with because that's what we've been taught since we were very little. And there's this thing we posted on Instagram like weeks back. We've been taking a breather from Instagram for a while, ever since we were on Dr. Phil, like the end of February. And it was all so exhausting. It was great. It was awesome. But it was just so much that after that, we've taken a breather for like 2 months and it's been amazing. That's an aside. Anyway, this thing we posted... this thing we posted on Instagram, it got a lot of people talking. And it's something we hadn't quite articulated in this way before, but we asked the question, when you looked your best, in quotes, were you treating yourself the best? Like, be honest.
Yeah.
And the truth is, most all of us can look to the times where we looked our best. And the truth is that we isolated. We were obsessed and fixated on food, on how we looked, on self-objectification, on shame. I think about the times when I was smallest, I was eating so little. I was just desperate for boys to like me. And I thought, my friends that are skinnier are dating more than me, and I need to lose weight. And the truth is, I'm at a point now where I'm definitely fatter than I've ever been, and I'm happier than I've ever been. I'm in good shape. My body like functions well. I am so grateful for that. I work out because I get stronger. I can hike with my husband. I work out because I can. And that is all like sitting here much fatter than I planned on being. And if I could tell younger me that was so obsessed with her weight and still wasn't getting what she wanted, that I could be sitting here today and be like the happiest I could ever imagine being and have all the things I want. And none of it was depending on hitting a certain dress size or weight. I wish I could tell her that. And I wish I could tell everybody that. If we could just see more examples of people living. Because when you look around, they're there. You see people in loving relationships. You see people doing amazing in their careers. You can see people living their best lives, competing in marathons. None of them looking like we have been sold they should look. And if we could all embrace that and realize that you can live a happy, amazing life as you are with the privilege you do hold. And I acknowledge I have a ton of privilege there, a ton. But I wish more people could understand that we are chasing mirages when we are constantly trying to get somewhere different.
Yes, I love everything you said. And I think that was one of the biggest things I've realized in hindsight going through an eating disorder was like really dissecting it in hindsight and thinking, oh my gosh, I started like down that path kind of accidentally, but it was chasing happiness. I was chasing self-acceptance, and I was chasing acceptance and beauty, like approval from others. And yet it's almost like we've all been convinced by this illusionary string that self-esteem, acceptance, and happiness is attached to our appearance and our bodies. And it's like the two somehow have been like meshed together in our minds, even though they couldn't be farther from the truth, because it's like, what was the very reason that made me realize I wanted to get better from anorexia? It was because I'd lost completely all the things that I started down the road to chase. Like I had no relationship left. I hated myself more than ever before. And anyway, so I think that's what's such a great concept that you guys dive so far into is the idea that, our bodies and our worth, our beauty and our self-esteem, they're oftentimes connected by media or by what we're taught, but they are so far apart. And so, how do you guys think that I guess what in your life has showed you that these things are so separate, or how do you teach people that these things are totally separate?
That's a really good question. And it's really at the heart of everything we've done. And that gets to the core of, I think, what Lexie brought up earlier, that our work is different from a lot of people in the body image space. And it has been ever since we started. And I think it's because we came at it from this research perspective that was really founded in objectification theory, this idea that our bodies have been presented back to us as objects for other people's consumption, for viewing as opposed to living, and so we took that media studies and objectification, kind of a more psychological perspective on it. And we turned our research more toward resilience theory, because we recognized that when people feel terribly about their bodies and they are obsessed with how they look, what they're experiencing is this horrible cycle of self-objectification. It helps us to understand and predict why girls and women especially start to feel so horribly about their bodies and to be so fixated on their appearance. But what it didn't describe was how to get out of it. And so that's where we spent our focus. Yeah, we spent our focus on this resilience model where we could predict what types of things in our objectifying culture would cause people to turn their attention back to their appearance and to cope with that body anxiety by excessive dieting and over exercising and fixating on appearance in all of the ways that we know how to do in our culture. And with the resilience model, we also recognized that when you make choices to stay in the coping and the shame and clinging to what we call an uncomfortable comfort zone of just perpetually hiding and fixing your body in endless cycles forever.
By the way, sorry to interrupt. I loved how you guys started off the book talking about how we all live in a very uncomfortable comfort zone. I'm just going to say that and let you continue. I thought that was really cool.
No, thanks for pointing that out. That's something we haven't brought up yet in this conversation. Just this idea of normative discontent, that it is perfectly normal for most of us to feel uncomfortable in our bodies all the time. And yet we don't recognize that as something that's wrong. Instead, it's something that is normal, that we bond over. We complain about our bodies and our shapes and our faces and our hair endlessly. And that's just something that we take for granted as just the nature of being a woman, too bad. And people, I think, really underestimate how unnatural of a state that is. And our work is really to help people to see that we are in a state of normative discontent. We are uncomfortable, even though it feels natural to us. And when we're endlessly coping with these feelings of being triggered and reminded of our appearance and our flaw all the time, then we're staying in this vicious cycle. And so our work differs in that we are not coming to people and telling them, don't worry about all this beauty stuff. You're beautiful. You are perfect. You look perfect just the way you are. Like, that kind of message sounds familiar to people because that's at the heart of every PR campaign and marketing campaign around body image since this became a topic of conversation in the early 2000s. It was always this approach of, you don't realize how beautiful you are. And if you saw yourself how strangers saw you, then you would know that you really are attractive and you don't need to be embarrassed about yourself. And it turns out that it's a nice thing to hear, but what it didn't do is move the needle on anyone's body image issues. It did not take the pressure off of women to be obsessed with how they look. Nobody was fixed by the thought that, like, oh, okay, well, maybe I am beautiful. Who cares about the multi-billion-dollar? Yeah, that's it. There's so much else that is put up against us to keep us fixated on how we look as a result of this profit-driven and patriarchal and, sexist and racist culture that so often we are immersed in. And so our work really is focused on the solutions. It's focused not on you're beautiful, but you are more than beautiful. You are more than a body. It's the title of our book. And it's a paradigm shift for people.
It's funny because, like what you just said, where, it shifted into, well, you're beautiful how you are. That message to me made me obsessed with staying how I am. and
Yes.
becoming obsessed with making sure my skin was exactly how it was when someone told me that at the age of 27. You know,
Oh,
no
wow.
wrinkles, must be perfect, must pull up my cheeks, must, you know, do everything I can to remain beautiful just how I am, which wasn't actually a great thing for me to be obsessing over.
Well, and
Yes,
it's like
that's so interesting.
we get older, we gain weight. Like I think that's a great analogy of like, well, then that means I have to be the best version of me and what makes me beautiful. But like you said earlier, Lindsay, I think said it, that you love the version of yourself that's right now. And if you were comparing yourself to the past you and only the past you's appearance, you might not be able to fully realize how wonderfully like perfect your life is right now in where you're at. And I will say that was I think one of the bigger like, whoa, this book has a different approach to me was when you guys did talk about the difference between like, you know, these campaigns, like it actually isn't the biggest positive body message when you tell people you're beautiful the way you are. Like, why are we focusing on telling people they're beautiful? Like, why is that the only thing? You know, I thought that was such a big, like, oh my gosh, that was an aha moment for me. And now, you know, when I see certain campaigns, whether it's by Dove or, you know, Maybelline, because you're worth it, you know, I'm worth being beautiful. Like, no, I'm worth so much more. Like, like, why do you guys think that do you feel like when they have these kind of messages that are seemingly positive, but they actually are still pushing the same idea? Do you think it's almost more damaging when they're kind of almost sneaky like that?
It can be.
Yeah.
We call it commodified body positivity because it's like, it's a twisted take on an otherwise positive message. And that's when people are profiting from whatever is currently popular. And it's the same companies who profited on our insecurities about our weight and pushed extremely thin ideals and photoshopped every model to be unrealistically smaller than she already was and wiped out every sign of life, like cellulite, stretch marks, stray hairs, you know, evened out skin tones, all of these things. And yet once they start to lose sales and people aren't visiting the site as much, or they get called out on it and get embarrassed by it, then they have this magical turn toward, actually, all bodies are beautiful just the way they are. And so we're going to show you these people.
Right.
It kind of rings hollow. And it's not that it's wrong and that it shouldn't be rewarded, because of course we love to see forward progress, but we want people to just go in with their eyes wide open and see what is it that the company wants you to take away from it. And in reality, most of them just want your money. They don't actually care about how you feel about your body. They just want to be fitting in with the current forward progress in our culture. They want to look like they're doing the work when they just want money.
Yeah. And one of the things Lindsay and I are really committed to critiquing, because we are known for our critiques of pop culture and even body positivity, commodified body positivity, is the fact that a lot of this messaging, a lot of the you're beautiful, all bodies are beautiful, expanded range of what gets to be sexy, you know, all these things, a lot of it reinforces self-objectification. It just reinforces that, hey, we're looking at you. Hey, you're here to be looked at. We like what we see. You know, like it's still reinforcing this idea that we have to live for others' viewing pleasure. And we don't want to just expand the boundaries of who gets to be objectified. We don't want that. Like that is not progress. We want to see people show up as more than bodies. We want to see women on screen. Like I want to see fat women on screen that don't have a plot that revolves around them being fat. I don't want it to be talked about in the ways that men get to show up on screen, on TV, movies, ads, as they are. We see fat men, dark-skinned men, light-skinned men, short. You know, the list goes on. But for women, there are a few exceptions, and we are starting to see more of that. But for the most part, we still are seeing a very narrow representation of what gets to be considered normal and desirable. I mean, look no further than like Lindsay and I love reality TV. We love like trashy reality TV, like
we all.
Yeah. We love a Real Housewife. We love a Bachelor. You know, these sorts of things. You look there. There is no diversity. There is no body diversity. I mean, now there's been a campaign to get more race diversity, but have you ever seen a woman with any, that has any substantial body type different than what we see consistently? No, we haven't. And that sucks. We need to see more of that. And that's when we'll know that progress is being made. When women can show up on Instagram, on TV, in movies, in a variety of shapes and sizes, and not have their body be their identity. That's when you'll know that progress is moving forward.
Yes. I love all of that, and I thought it was really cool also how you guys talked about, like, I don't know. Okay, I should start by saying we all know comparison is bad. And, I've been taught that comparison is the thief of joy is like the good old quote that I was raised on. And, but like, wouldn't you say that the majority of the body image problems stem pretty much purely from comparison? Like, I think I'm going to quote your book. I believe you said, beauty isn't a limited resource in our world. Neither is love, attraction, peace, or validation or happiness. Just going into the basics of like comparison, like everything isn't limited in life. It doesn't have to be you are pretty or I'm pretty. It's like, it's not a limited resource. And I don't know why we treat it as such. Then quote continued, but a world of narrow, high, ideally prized ideals on how bodies should look puts it into hierarchies of who looks right and who doesn't, and then ties our hopes of achieving all those good things to our ability to climb the hierarchy. And this puts us at odds against our own bodies and even our friends in comparison.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Comparison is, thank you. Comparison really is at the root of all of this, because we're being set up broadly against an ideal of what it looks like to be a woman who is normal, acceptable, not even a perfect 10, not beautiful and desirable by everyone, but just normal, just okay. So many of us have grown up feeling abnormal, like Lexie and I did, feeling like our bodies were uniquely wrong and embarrassing, and not seeing other bodies that reflected the same types of things we had going on just reinforce that. And it continues to do that when we are only seeing people who look one way, or when we're seeing people who do fit a wider variety of shapes and sizes and appearances, and yet all of the dialogue or the text and description is entirely about how their bodies are so different, and yet, still good, still beautiful. It's kind of like it furthers the stigma against looking different than the ideals. So the comparison thing is really tough, because it pits us against each other as women, and it doesn't happen. This is a really gendered issue. Like, a lot of men don't walk into a room and immediately pick out who the other attractive men in the room are, or who is more muscular than them or thinner than them, or whatever the thing is. But a lot of women do. A lot of women have been taught that there's power in being the thinnest or the youngest or the most beautiful one in the room. And it's a false sense of power, and it's a false sense of superiority. Like, it doesn't give you anything extra. You don't really get any extra points. You don't get any extra peace or confidence or happiness or love or any of the things that we all want in this world. But we're sold the idea that we will. And so we continue to just kill ourselves to get to these ideals. And then we're even more depressed. We're already depressed in the process of being extremely restrictive with what we eat, and being obsessive about our exercise routines, and making sure our makeup and hair and everything are perfect all the time. That is depressing on its own and extremely draining. But then being able to, keep up the discipline and whatever you think that is required in order to get your body into the shape and the appearance that it needs to be, and then still not get what you want, still have a partner who cheats on you or is mean to you or abuses you, and still get cancer and still get depression and still because we're human. That is a real slap in the face to people. Beauty isn't going to get us what we want, even if we've been sold that message from every single angle our whole lives.
And one of the liberating things we like to point out is that when you start to see yourself as more than a body, when you can start calling out the self-objectification and practicing coming back inside your body, you start to see everybody else as more too. And so women become less threatening. You stop judging everybody by what you think your partner might think when they see them. You stop judging them by who's fatter than you, who's thinner than you, who's prettier. All of a sudden, like even women who in the past you might have thought, like you would have totally judged her for how she was dressed or how much makeup she had on or that boob job or whatever. Instead, you see them with so much more compassion. You start to see people as fully human, as people that are doing their best, trying to navigate a world that is so vicious to us, that wants us to judge and compete. And instead, you see people with more love. And that compassion, that is so central, not just to our own relationships with our bodies, but to our relationships with everybody, our moms, our sisters, those strangers we walk past on the street, the girl at the club that you think is doing too much. All of a sudden, they're all more human and you can love them more.
I love that. That is so powerful. And the more therapy I've done and the more self-help books I have read, the more I just come back to this concept of like, holy cow, life is a mirror.
Yeah.
What you see in other people is what you are actually feeling. And if you feel like intense comparison and that intense like jealousy or whatever, like I just love how you said that. It that usually is a sign that you have to work on the way you feel about yourself. And and I will say when I was really unhealthy mentally and in anorexia, I couldn't focus on anything. When I walked into a room, I was like, all I would look around for was who was the skinniest girl and how I did compare. And it's been amazing to feel the amount of actually confidence build as I don't look for that anymore. And as I can walk into a room, like you said, knowing that I am so much more than if I am the most fit or the prettiest, or if my makeup looks the best that day, like whatever, like, and I also liked what you brought up about how we have not only comparison to the women that we see in everyday life and that may be in the same room as us, like that can be a thing, but also I didn't even think about the fact that there's an imaginary comparison to an ideal that doesn't even actually exist. But what we just think we're comparing ourselves to something that's out there that we're supposed to be. And so that's even a comparison that I hadn't really thought of before.
That's interesting because a lot of us have this, like when you picture your future self, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, when a lot of us picture that future self, she doesn't look like we do now. She maybe is thinner or, has some other cosmetic enhancement, or when we picture our happiest lives and our best possible selves, we might not be picturing the bodies that we're in right now or something that is realistic for us as we age. And that I think is a huge tragedy because that sets us up for continued feelings of failure and anxiety and exhaustion as we do age. And we feel like we aren't living up to our best lives and our best potential. I really think that's a result of being in this world where we're seeing that message from so many different angles. It's absolutely a part of a lot of the media that we grew up with. This idea of like before and after and progress that tends to look one way. It's always bigger to smaller and, older looking to younger looking and, mousy hair to beautiful voluminous hair or whatever it is. So many makeover narratives throughout our entire lives in our culture. And so I think it sets up this idea that if we're going to live our best possible lives and really live up to our potential, then we're going to have to look really hot in order to be happy and to fulfill those goals. That is rough. I definitely had that in my life. I remember, speaking of my New York experience, I first came to New York for the first time like 13 years ago. And when I came here, I loved it so much. I just, I thought I would just die to live here someday. Really overwhelming, but I felt great. I loved it. And I came home and I remember thinking over the next couple of years, I was in my very early 20s. And I remember even being sort of familiar with some of this body image stuff and learning about it. I still had this feeling that if I was going to live my best life, which maybe included moving to New York City, that I would need to lose weight and look better in order to be happy here. I really had this mental image of myself walking down the street that was smaller than I was then. I fully believed that if I was going to be successful dating here and have a great career and be able to have the confidence that I wanted to walk down the street and to go to nice restaurants and meet cool people, that I would need to be thinner than I was. And that little false mental image and narrative stayed in my brain, in my subconscious, basically until the year before I moved here. And it started to shake loose a little bit. It was so deep in my subconscious that I didn't question it. It wasn't even like a negative body image thing because I had worked through that stuff. Like I'm pretty good. I'm not really fixated on my appearance, even with a lot of weight fluctuations and getting older and all of that stuff. I actually feel pretty great regardless of all of it. But there was still this picture in my head that if I was going to live in New York City, I needed to be thinner. And once I decided I was going to move to New York, I had to confront that in some ways. Mm-hmm. I had to push back on that idea that I couldn't be successful unless I was thinner. And the way I proved that wrong was by just literally doing what I wanted to do without changing my body first and without waiting until my body fit the mold that this false dream in my mind had painted. And that shattered the glass for me because I could be at my highest weight and have the best dating experiences of my life and have the best career of my life and be happier and more confident than I was when I was much smaller and much more fixated on how I look. Sometimes we just have to push through the myths and the false narratives and lies that we've been taught about what it means to be happy and to be living our best lives and getting the good things we want. We do that by just trying anyway, regardless of how we look.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I just love everything you guys are saying so much. It's like we think we know what it means to be happy and we see it in our mind. And sometimes like just in general, even outside of looks and everything, it's like, who's to say that the thing that you imagine is going to make you the happiest, whether it's a body or whether it's like the dream job, like happiness and self-satisfaction comes from such a deeper place than just what we think and what we've always painted as the picture. Sometimes there's so much more out there than that. And Lindsay, in your TED Talk, you mentioned a story about swimming, how you guys loved swimming growing up. And because of your, insecurity about your body at one point, you stopped swimming and you were really good at it too. But, and I just loved how you said it when you said that finally there was you're invited to the lake with some friends and your boyfriend and you went into the water and you felt how beautiful it felt in your body to swim for the first time in a really long time. And you realized that you had decided that you were going to swim, even though that's something your body could do all along. And it was something you were good at. I don't know if you want to add anything more to that story, but it was just so beautiful the way you told it.
It really was one of the most powerful experiences of my entire life, even to this moment. And it was 15 years ago, almost 16 years ago now. I still get goosebumps literally every time I think about it or tell people about it. And I think no one else would have known what an overwhelming experience it was for me because I completely just kept it inside and didn't tell anyone how paranoid I felt to be putting on a swimsuit for the first time in several years, even though I had been a competitive swimmer. And just the overwhelming sense of still being capable and qualified, that my body really was an instrument for my use instead of an ornament to be looked at. I could not have learned that any other way than by physically pushing through that fear and anxiety and doing it anyway. And it was the actual doing of the activity. It was the swimming again that showed me how capable and powerful I was and what joy it brought to me to be able to do something that I had loved and yet felt that I no longer qualified for because I didn't like how I looked in my swimsuit. And like you said, it turns out I had always qualified to do the thing that I wanted to do. I was always able, and it always brought me joy. And what took it away is the fear of what people would see when they looked at me. And that's part of the resilience process. That was the start of my journey toward body image resilience. And everybody has the opportunity to experience moments like that, even teeny tiny little moments. You could have an experience like that tomorrow. Because we're all triggered by certain things that make us go back inside our shells and hide and fix and find all the ways that we can, improve our bodies so that we can be more confident and maybe do that thing we want to do later, like go up for a a promotion or speaking in front of a group, or even going to like a service opportunity that we don't want to be looked at. So many things we end up holding ourselves back from. And instead of coping in all of the ways that we normally would and hiding like I did for years, instead of putting on a swimsuit, what we can do is practice our strategies for body image resilience. We can do that by looking around at this environment that we're surrounded by and figuring out where these feelings of body shame are coming from. Did this come from the family that you grew up in, the people that you are surrounded by right now, the types of media that you are taking into your life voluntarily and involuntarily? What are the messages that are reinforcing to you today on a regular basis and that have shaped this map for you about what it looks like to be valuable, to be beautiful, acceptable, anything? And from there, you can start to be more critical of all of the messages that come in and have the opportunity to pick and choose and curate what comes into your life, both on social media and in terms of your interpersonal relationships and the conversations that you have with people. And from there, you can work on practicing those resilience strategies every time you are triggered to hide.
Yeah. It's amazing how so
Disordered
much
eating.
of, I think, working on yourself just deals with being aware. Just like sometimes we don't even realize these huge waves of fluctuating emotions that are happening in us because, one, they feel kind of normal. And, I think that when you start to just realize, oh, I'm uncomfortable right now. Why am I uncomfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Why did that hurt so bad when that happened? Why am I so afraid right now? Just like pausing sometimes to ask yourself why. And I think that's the big thing we can all learn from, because I think we've talked about a lot of facts and information and, stories. But the biggest thing is realizing this doesn't have to be our normal. We don't have to stay in this uncomfortable feeling. And realizing that this uncomfortable feeling is not normal. So let's question it when it shows up. Let's ask why. And let's say, no, I still can do that. I'm just why do I think I can't, quote, go swimming? Why do I think I can't move to New York yet? Really asking those questions. Do you guys have any other steps that help people go through this body resilience?
Yeah. Another one, it's the subtitle of our book, and it's one of our most popular mantras. We want people to memorize and take in the idea that your body is an instrument, not an ornament. Your body is an instrument for your use, for your experience, for your life. It is not an ornament that is simply there for others viewing pleasure, for others using pleasure, for others judging pleasure. It is not, despite the narrative that we've all been taught. Your body is instrumental. It is yours. It's the only one you've ever had. Take this moment seriously to look down at your body and consider the fact that this is the body you were born into. The scars, the freckles, the moles, the stretch marks, those are signs that you're alive, that your body has gotten you to this day. The resilience you have, despite how capable your body is, despite the health conditions you deal with that most of us deal with on some level, your body is working so hard to get you to where you are right now. And that if you can thank it, as cheesy as it sounds, even the parts you're ashamed of that you have been taught to be ashamed of, if instead you can reinforce to yourself every time that shame rises up that your body is an instrument, not an ornament, then a lot of things change in your life. One of the things that can change in your life that will benefit you greatly is your definition of health and fitness, which we write a lot about. It has been totally conflated and confused with thinness and beauty. Those are not the same thing. You can be healthy at a variety of shapes and sizes. You can be fit at a variety of shapes and sizes. You do not have to be thin to be healthy. And blood work backs that up. What we say, one of the kind of things that we like to share, which is so important, is that you can be healthy at a wide variety of sizes, and you cannot tell somebody's health by looking at them. It turns out that physical activity is a much better indicator of somebody's health than their weight or their size. So one of the things you can do when you're starting to set new fitness and health goals is to stop setting those objectifying goals you used to set, those goals that are just based on your weight or your size. Those only tell you about your relationship to gravity and what your body looks like. But they don't actually tell you anything about what your body can do, about how you feel, what you can accomplish. So instead, if you can focus on setting goals that have to do with, like, how many dance classes are you going to take this week? Or how many walks are you going to go on? Or how heavy of weights can you lift? Whatever the thing is you like to do that isn't a punishment for you, but that you can do and like it, do that thing and set goals about how you improve your performance and do more of the things you love. And as you do it and you stop paying attention to how your body might or might not be changing, you realize the benefits of seeing your body as an instrument. Your mental health improves. You get the endorphins that tell you you are amazing, even when nothing about how your looks change. It is so powerful. I've done it myself throughout the pandemic. I have a 2-year-old baby. Ever since she was born, I have been committed to being active in ways that are enjoyable. And it has done absolute wonders for my mental health, my confidence, my body image. Anybody that is capable, I highly recommend that you change your physical fitness goals and your health goals to be instrumental, not ornamental.
I love that. That is so good. And I love another thing you guys say about, let's see, we're looking for the quote right now, but messaging about body positivity is believing that your body is good, not that your body looks good. And I think that the differentiation, and I've really started to try to think these things like when, and almost just practice reversing the words that come through my mind when I look at myself in the mirror or when I put something on that maybe doesn't fit as well. Reminding myself that like I am capable. My body works. I can still dance and put on a show. Like, wow, like reversing the thoughts, because I think it's, again, that awareness of realizing, oh my gosh, I'm doing it again. I'm thinking those unhealthy and really unproductive thoughts that don't make me a better person. They don't make me happier. And, going back to like, my body doesn't have to look good. It is good. And that's the important kind of healthy. And I think I just can't even say enough. I have loved everything you guys said. And I just, I do also want to ask you guys, how has the reaction been to like not only Beauty Redefined, but also your book, like the seminars you teach? Like, what has it been like to see women around the world react to your messages?
It's been amazing.
Yeah, same.
I just especially with having a public presence, like as women with bodies talking about body image, that is stressful. And we're like feminists on the internet, and that's also very stressful. And yet somehow we have gotten so much more positivity than negativity. Like, of course that negativity comes, but the groundswell of support we have received both in person at events like across the country, but also the support for our book, which we really like. It was the most exciting opportunity we have ever had to get our message out like in one comprehensive place. Like, it means everything to us. And so it was scary to do it. Like, it's scary to write stuff down in a book that like you can't edit. It just is. And it was like, we were vulnerable in it because we asked people to be vulnerable themselves. And so we had to put that out there too, not just as experts, but as like women with bodies. And it has just been like the most amazing thing to see people embrace this book. It has been one of like truly the joys of my life.
Oh my gosh. You guys should be so proud of what you guys have created. And like I said, I've heard from multiple people that, I should follow you guys and I should read your book, and like you're changing lives. And just to anyone listening, I can't, like, male or female, I recommend this book. I think that it's a life-changing book. It was really, I think, great for me to read as someone. I've done a ton of work on my relationship with my body from where I was in college with an eating disorder to now. And there were some moments when I was like patting myself on the back, like, oh girl, we are doing so good. And then there was I was like, shoot, I've got a long way to go. It just kind of made me realize the way that media is telling us we need to always work and we're always a project on like looking good. It's kind of the opposite mindset of like, you know what? Anytime you're working on therapy or like working on yourself, we are all just somewhere on this journey of being good. And I think that's what your book shares the most powerfully and beautifully. So I highly recommend everybody go buy the book, go read it. You will not regret it. But before I let you guys go, anything else that you want to share?
That's so nice. Just thank you so much for reading the book and for sharing it. It means the world to us. We're just so grateful to be able to get it out there and to help people see themselves in a slightly different way. And not that they're going to transform overnight. And like the book won't fix all your body image issues, but it will start you on a path to being able to recognize when those thoughts creep in, when the self-objectification happens. You will have a name for it, and you'll know that it's not just because you're wrong and you lack discipline and you are making mistakes. It's because of this environment that we live in that has taught us we're objects. Like it is all just a process it's a continuous process. And I think that should leave people with a lot of optimism because we are all on this path together. And Lexie and I have seen huge changes in our culture, in the communities that we've been involved in. It's been enormous. Every single person should feel such optimism that they can improve, that they can feel better, even with tiny, small steps.
100%.
And like Lindsay said, oh, sorry, Lindsay.
Oh, go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, just to add on to what my Lindsay said, too many Lindsays. I think it is just so hopeful to think about the fact that body image resilience is not a one-time process, but it is a muscle you flex over time. And that as you practice it, like as you do these little things we've talked about, when you start to, view media differently and maybe unsubscribe and unfollow, like from some of that stuff that actually hurts you and causes you to self-objectify. When you change the way you see health and fitness, when you change the way you talk to people and have hard conversations with people you need to have those difficult conversations with about what you will and will not talk about bodies. Over time, that stuff becomes so much easier. And the shame you feel, the embarrassing moments you feel, the comments people make about your body, over time, those things hurt less. They become little blips on the radar instead of things that used to send you down a shame spiral you couldn't pull yourself out of for weeks. I promise you that as you flex these little muscles, you become more. You see yourself as more. You see yourself in the world as more. The possibilities for your life open up. And can you imagine the benefit of all of the people listening to this, of all the people we can tell about this after this call, to be able to see themselves as more? Like the groundswell that is happening, it makes me so hopeful for the future of people seeing themselves as more than bodies.
Yes. No, I couldn't agree more. That's so well said. You guys are great speakers, by the way. You're so articulate.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, but I also, one last thing I'll say about your book is that I read a lot of self-help books. And I love that yours has very actionable items that, like I marked certain chapters that I was like, this has practical information of how to deal with certain thought patterns. This chapter really gives me like some solutions, not just like pointing out the issues and the problems. It's like there's solutions and there's steps and and like you said, it's a muscle. And so I just want to thank you so much for what you put into the world, for your research, and then for taking the time to talk with us this last, hour and a half.
This was amazing.
Yeah.
I feel so on fire right
now.
I'm
like,
oh, yes. Thank you so
awesome.
much.
Thank you.
Oh, we so appreciate it.
I hope our paths cross again. We're come out and hang with us at a show or something. Please.
Yes.
Totally.
But I'm sure we'll be in touch again. But just have a wonderful rest of your night.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, everybody. Well, that was
Oh my gosh.
amazing.
That was so amazing.
I really am like pumped right now. I just feel so like enlightened, and
I kept like going off into like these personal trains of thoughts as they were talking, where I would have memories pop up of times where media or something in my life has done me wrong and planted a seed that has now grown into a tree that I can't cut down.
And it's exciting to realize that these new thoughts plant new seeds, and they will begin to grow new trees, you know, and that to me is the really, really exciting part. Wow, that was amazing. I'm so glad that, you know, we touched on some of this last week, and we like dove into it. I felt like we went into some like really thick meat today on this. But I want to play a song. You know, this is after all a radio show. But I was gonna play one in the middle. I even remembered this time, but I was like, I don't want to take away from like we are being taught right now.
It was way too good of a conversation.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna play Lizzo right now. But I actually asked Lexie and Lindsay like what songs or if there were any artists that they wanted, and so I'm gonna end today with we got they mentioned anything by Lizzo. Okay. And you know, I do think Lizzo embodies just being awesome and loving herself. And yes, she loves talking about being beautiful, and she loves showing that she's beautiful in her body, but also she just embodies being awesome. Yeah. So I think like Lizzo is a good choice, and this is I think it's her newest song. So let's give it over to Lizzo for the next 3 minutes. Oh, I'm muted. Oh dear. Okay. Oh, no. Sorry, I've muted myself and unmuted. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for joining us today. The song was a little more explicit than I knew, so I apologize if anyone was offended. But, you know, it's Lizzo. Like,
you go into it knowing it.
You know. Yeah. And it's not really swearing if it's Lizzo.
It's not real swearing.
That's like Lizzo, cool swearing, you know. It's art. Okay, anyways, just thanks everybody. I think I'm out for the evening, and we'll see you next week. It's going to be a Lindsay and Friends week, so stay tuned to see who we're going to bring on. Can't wait. Love you all. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you soon. Bye.